All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hold on.
Welcome back to.
I've started watching these. I used to check my phone when I had these live streams going, but now I just open up another window in my browser and I look between the two. And you have to remember to mute it. Otherwise, you're going to have feedback. Alex, I see you back there. Just give me a second. I'm getting set up here. I'm streaming this over to Facebook as well. Shout out to David Lorenzo Glover, the controversial counselor, and the big bad wolf, Herbert Lewis, who are also now simulcast on YouTube and Facebook. Give me a second here. I don't simulcast everything from my YouTube channels over to Facebook, and I'm going to tell you why. But this topic is important, and I think me and my guest, we're trying to raise awareness of this thing that we're going to talk about. And I think that it's important for this to reach as many people possible. So I am streaming this over to Facebook as well. All right, so I see the Facebook is going. Let's see, the YouTube is going. The StreamYard is going. So I'm going to start. So I have a guest, Alex. I'm going to bring up in a few minutes. We're just going to go for about an hour with this one. In this live stream, we're going to talk a little bit about. Oh, before I get into that, let me go back to branding. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and this is Big Discussion 76, Science and Technology. I show this on all my pre-records. And this is my social media contact info. I have a Facebook page called the Big Words blog site Facebook page. I have a blogging platform called the Big Words blog site. And I have a Twitter handle based upon my blogging and YouTubing now. And I have an Instagram. If any of you guys are on Instagram, that's my Instagram handle. I need to get more regular with it. And I'm also starting a new website just for more literary writing as I'm working on a book project. But anyway, today we're going to talk a little bit about, where's the picture? I have a really cool picture to illustrate this. Where is it? That's the wrong folder. With StreamYard, sometimes you think you upload things. I like to use a lot of pictures. And before I start the broadcasts, I'm just getting the pictures together and the links. And sometimes you think you have everything and you don't. In any case, today we're going to talk a little bit about cancer, me and my guest. This is something that's touched everybody in some way, shape, or form. And every one of us knows someone who was touched by this disease. The first part of this live stream is going to be, what's going on, Sheet? Thank you for being here. The first part of this live stream is just going to be a brief walk through what cancer is for the non-scientists out there. And this is a good point for me to make this disclaimer to any of my science peers who are out there watching. So I've been pretty transparent about the fact that that I work in the regulatory sector. And I actually wrote a blog post on that, which is here. I've shown this several times. So I work in the regulatory sector and regulatory affairs. If you want to learn some more about that, that is here. I'm going to drop the link in the chat right now. This is from my blogging platform. But I wanted to make a little disclaimer before we start talking about what we're going to talk about. Because when you work in regulatory affairs, when you're registering drugs or some sort of industrial chemical, you usually have a cancer group in that agency or that division. And right now, for my particular agency, which I won't name here, I'm a part of the cancer group and I'm playing a prominent role right now. So I'm saying this to say, in my Facebook network, this is streaming over to Facebook, some of my coworkers are in my Facebook network. So, and this is why you have to be careful making coworkers a part of your Facebook network. And so I'm just going to put this disclaimer out here to say that I'm not going to talk about anything work related. Because when you're talking about regulatory science, you're dealing with trade secrets and intellectual property from the private sector. But what I'm going to talk about today has absolutely nothing to do with any of that. So I just wanted to put this disclaimer out there because coworkers in your Facebook network and they say, oh, he was talking about this, he was talking about that. As a matter of fact, for any of my science peers who are in my Facebook network, this is going to be very high level, as I'll describe. Cancer, just imagine cancer is like an iceberg. Well, I'm just going to talk about the tip because my backgrounds are in pharmacology and toxicology. And as a part of those curriculums, we do learn some things about cancer, but cancer research and the cancer world is a whole world all in itself. And there are researchers who research this year round, and there are researchers who have been researching this for years. And so I'm just going to talk about a little bit of, I just want to give a little introductory talk on it to set up what we're going to talk about at the end, which is to raise awareness about, I believe it's leukemia and the importance of determining whether or not you can be a donor for bone marrow. So, okay, now that disclaimer is out of the way, let me get into my little brief spiel here. What's going on, Sheed? I think I already said what's up to you. I see Corrine Henry's here. Thank you for being here, Corrine. Okay, so cancer. So my backgrounds are in pharmacology and toxicology. I'm going to take this down. So, cancer. Most of us know someone who's had it. I can think of an aunt who had a concern for this. I could think of my father had a concern for this. And usually when you think about cancer, you're talking about the formation of a tumor. And that tumor can either be benign or it can be malignant. And I remember when my aunt went for a cancer diagnosis, maybe about 20 or so years ago. That's the first time I heard these terms. And I remember my mother telling me that the results came back benign, which is in this window over here, which means that it's contained and it's not going to spread somewhere else. The worst case scenario is if you have something malignant, which means that you have these cells, these cancerous cells that are dividing in a particular tissue, and then they spill out into the general circulation and they spread to other places. And those cells are said to become immortal, which means that they're just going to keep dividing and dividing and dividing, which is very, very dangerous for the patient. And again, so going back, many of you all know that I've partnered here on YouTube with the Scientist Supreme, Nicole Ali. Nicole knows a hell of a lot more about the molecular biology behind cancer than I do. So on these matters, I will defer to her. Again, this is just a kind of an introductory talk to set up what me and my guest Alex are going to talk about later. Okay, so that's cancer. Where does cancer come from? Let's see. So for those of us in the animal kingdom, we know that our bodies, our tissues, our organs are made up of billions and billions and billions of animal cells. Those cells are specialized depending upon which tissue they are in. So you have in the liver, you'll have hepatocytes. Fat cells are called adipocytes. Brain cells and the cells in your nervous system, those are neurons. You have specialized cells in the pancreas. You have specialized sex-related cells. So our bodies are made up of billions and billions of these, depending upon tissue type. Going back to Cell Biology 101, cells divide, obviously. You have general cells that form the organs and the tissues I just talked about, and then you have cells that are in your sex organs, and those divide those have special properties, and those divide in their own way. But what I'm trying to say is that the cells have built-in clocks and checkpoints and regulators that cause them to divide and then stop. And what we know in cancer cells is that these regulatory pathways within the cells, at some point, something becomes either broken or something becomes dysregulated that would cause the cell to keep dividing over and over and over again. So in summary, there are checkpoints, for the most part, within the nucleus, within the cytoplasm. There are cellular pathways and checkpoints that cause the cells to start dividing, and then there are pathways which cause them to stop. And it's through these mechanisms, when these mechanisms break down, that's when the cells can start dividing over and over and over again. So what do I mean when I say there are regulators and checkpoints? Well, there are actual proteins. This is my favorite transcription and translation slide. There you have a strand of DNA giving rise to a strand of RNA, and then to a protein, which is represented by that polypeptide. I like to refer to the proteins as the workhorses within the cells, and the sequences for those proteins come from the DNA. So if there's something wrong with that DNA, and if that DNA gets damaged at some point, you're going to get an alteration in your protein. And again, your protein is the workhorse of the cell. Here's another picture which depicts that. So in your nucleus, you have your DNA that gives rise to your RNA, and that RNA gives rise to the protein. So if some damage happens to that DNA, you're going to get alteration to the protein that DNA is coding for. And if that protein is a protein for a cell cycle regulator, something like that could cause a cancer to form. So what else can cause a cancer to form? Well, if you think back to when the pandemic first started, here's the beer bug right here. One of the concerns, one of the conspiracy theories that got out and started swirling around really, really fast was 5G. And there were numerous conspiracy theorists who insisted that the 5G is causing whatever the COVID-19 was causing. So as a scientist, I remember my cousin going on a rant about this, and it didn't make sense, because what you would think from something like 5G, which is creating basically a radio wave between towers, you would expect it to cause something cancerous. And so I thought back to the electromagnetic spectrum here. And so if you look at the bottom of this here, you have radio waves, microwaves, infrared radiation, ultraviolet radiation, X-rays, gamma rays, et cetera, et cetera. And if you look each of these sections, each section of this row, it has wavelengths, and it has frequencies at the bottom. So what I just want to say about this is that when you're thinking about radiation that can cause cancer, you're going to be focused on the ultraviolet range and up. So ultraviolet, X-rays, and gamma rays. the waves in my research, the waves generated by something like 5G is down here in the microwave range. So just the heat causing range. So I wanted to show this because one way to generate a cancer is to damage DNA. And that would come from something like ultraviolet radiation, X-rays, or gamma rays. And the atmosphere of our planet actually filters those out from the sun. So that's one way you can get a cancer formed. I'm going to take a look at the comments over here. Okay, we got lots of comments from Sheed. We got AB Media. What's going on, Herb? Thanks for being here. AB Media is here. Sheed is here. Let me look over on Facebook to see who's here, who's watching. Well, okay. Stacey, Melissa shared it. Thank you. Appreciate that. So you can get DNA damage from something like radiation. Too much radiation. You could get something, you can get a cancer formed from a chemical. It could be a drug. It could be an industrial chemical of some sort, like an emission from a factory or a vehicle, or it could be a pesticide. It could be something it could be from a drug. It could be from anything. So I'm going to show you guys the routes of exposure. This is from a talk I used to give, and I showed this slide. Humans can be exposed to chemicals either orally or through the inhalation route or through the dermal route. And each of these routes has different properties. So take, for example, through the oral route, if the chemical goes in, it has to get absorbed into the gastrointestinal tract. It's going to go through the liver first. Through the oral route, the heart receives 21% of, okay, let me say that again. The gastrointestinal tract receives 21% of the cardiac output. So 21% of the blood that the heart pumps out goes to the gastrointestinal tract. So humans can also be exposed through the inhalation route. And that's significant because humans have to breathe. We can stop eating we can just continue our eating for a while, but we can't stop respiring for very long. Otherwise, you'll suffer brain damage within a short period of time. But the inhalation route is a very, very efficient way to deliver a toxicant or a carcinogen to the body, and your lungs receive 100% of the cardiac output from the heart. So if you can deliver something through the inhalation route, that's a very, very efficient way to deliver something. Humans can also be exposed dermally to a toxicant or a carcinogen in this instance, and the skin receives 9% of the cardiac output. I'm going to take a quick look at the comments here. Okay, so we got Wayman Brown, Art Newstall. Art Newstall's going to take part in some of my scholarship here. Wayman Brown, what's going on? Mark Hesseby, I don't recognize you, but thank you for being here. Let's see. So let me get back. I want to bring Alex up. So those are the routes of exposure. That's how we can be exposed to things. So humans can be, so cancer can form from a chemical exposure of some sort. I'll show you my drugs picture here. So drugs or any type of exogenous compound can cause a cancer. Now, so what happens with a young person, a child? Let's say ages 1 through 12, or maybe a teen, someone who hasn't been around living very long. Some cancers can be genetic. A child can inherit something from their parent that causes a cancer early on in their lives. And there are some And there are some tumor types where I think the science community doesn't yet understand how some of these tumor types form. I see Alex showing me something there in the backstage on an envelope. I don't know what that is. So those are three ways that cancers can form. DNA damage, a chemical can get in there and disrupt a hormonal pathway. And in some instances, those are inherited. So let me focus this really, really quickly. And let's talk about the circulatory system. And going back to Nicole, me and Nicole talked about, you heard Nicole talk about CRISPR. And Nicole, we had a talk about CRISPR. And so there's a field now called gene editing, where they're trying to address cancer through literally excising the gene of interest from the genome to cure the cancer. So that's something that's going on now. And Nicole has talked about that quite a bit. So let's segue into the circulatory system. Alex, you know what, man? I'm going to bring you up right now because I know I see you getting kind of antsy back there in the backstage. Okay, I got a thumbs up. He can wait. All right, where are we at now? We're at 22 minutes. Okay, so let's segue into the circulatory system. So the circulatory system is in large part, I just showed you the routes of exposure. The circulatory system is how part of how we survive as human beings. We're multicellular organisms with multiple organs and tissues. And so we have organs that are not directly in contact with the outside environment. So we have to get our from somewhere, and we need a pathway by which we can get rid of the carbon dioxide that our cells generate. And that's what our circulatory system and our respiratory tract is for. This is a cross section of the heart and of our the two lobes, our two lung lobes. So what happens? So what's circulating around? What's circulating around in there are these guys, our red blood cells. The red blood cells, they carry oxygen and they carry carbon dioxide. They carry the oxygen to our extremities, and they bring the carbon dioxide back from those extremities for us to exhale into the environment. I talked about the red blood cells in my collaborations with the G6PD Deficiency Foundation and Task Force. But red blood cells are not the only cells in our circulatory system. There's also our immune system, which has all of these in them. So I just mentioned the red blood cells, platelets. You also have neutrophils, eosinophils, B lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, and natural killer cells. So part of how our immune system works is its ability to circulate through our circulatory system. That might have come out a little bit jumbled. I apologize if it did. A depiction of this is here. We tend to think of the blood as being one homogeneous solution, but actually in the lab, if you spin it down, you get a plasma fraction, and you get this is in this slide here. It's called a Buffy coat. This includes leukocytes, platelets, and white blood cells, and those kinds of things. And then at the bottom, you have the erythrocytes, or the red blood cells. And that's also depicted here in this slide. This is at any given time, all of these players are floating around in our bloodstream. So the neutrophils, the monocytes, eosinophils, basophils, red blood cells, all of those. I want to take another quick look at the chat, and then I'm going to move on. This person, I don't know what this person is talking about in the chat, but okay. So why does all of this matter? All this matters because of a particular cancer called leukemia. And as opposed to just trying to talk about leukemia off the top of my head, I'm going to read from a page that I found prior to starting this live stream. So what is leukemia? Leukemia is cancer of the body's blood-forming tissues, including the bone marrow and the lymphatic system. Many types of leukemia exist. Some forms of leukemia are more common in children. Other forms of leukemia occur mostly in adults. Leukemia usually involves the white blood cells. So that's why I just showed you guys these slides. Your white blood cells are potent infection fighters. They normally grow and divide in any orderly way as your body needs them. But in people with leukemia, the bone marrow produces an excessive amount of abnormal white blood cells, which don't function properly. Treatment with leukemia can be complex, depending on the type of leukemia and other factors. But there are strategies and resources that can help make your treatment successful. I'm going to read a little bit more of this, and then I'm going to move on. I'll drop the link in the chat. Leukemia symptoms vary depending on the type of leukemia. Common leukemia signs and symptoms include fever or chills, persistent fatigue, weakness, frequent or severe infections, weight loss without trying, swollen lymph nodes, enlarged livers or spleens, easy bleeding or bruising, recurrent nosebleeds, tiny red spots in your skin, excessive sweating, especially at night, bone pain, and tenderness. I'm going to get to that because I have a visual for that. So when to see a doctor? Make an appointment with your doctor if you have any persistent signs or symptoms that worry you. Leukemia symptoms are often vague and not specific. You may overlook early leukemia symptoms because they may resemble symptoms of the flu and other common illnesses. Sometimes leukemia is discovered during blood tests for some other condition. I'm going to read this and then I'm going to move on. Causes. Scientists don't understand the exact causes of leukemia. It seems to develop from a combination of genetic and environmental factors. So I just mentioned those in the introduction. How leukemia forms. In general, leukemia is thought to occur when some blood cells acquire changes, also known as mutations, in their genetic material or DNA. A cell's DNA contains the instructions that tell a cell what to do. Normally, the DNA tells the cell to grow at a set rate and to die at a set time. That's what I was talking about by having certain regulators and checkpoints early on. In leukemia, the mutations tell the blood cells to continue growing and dividing. When this happens, blood cell production becomes out of control. Over time, these abnormal cells can crowd out healthy blood cells in the bone marrow, leading to fewer healthy white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets, causing the signs and symptoms of leukemia. So I'm going to drop this link in the chat. So while that page discussed young people, I also remember, if you know the Mike Tyson story, Jim Jacobs was part of his original team, and Jim Jacobs died of leukemia, if I recall correctly. And that's one of the things that caused Mike Tyson's career to spin out of control. This person is, this must be some sort of, this must be a troll or a spammer of some sort. Corrine Henry says, a high school friend passed away from leukemia. I'm sorry to hear that, Corrine. He or she talking about a show on Netflix popular with Muslims. All my Muslim friends are telling me to watch. Okay. All right. So that's that was a short introduction to leukemia. before I bring Alex on, I'm going to talk a little bit about cancer drugs. So as a pharmacologist, I'm always looking at this through how, in the context of drugs and compounds. And as I'll show you, and I'm sure as Alex will talk about when he comes up, a very difficult part of dealing with cancer is the drugs, because many of the drugs are designed to actually kill the cancer, but there's often a lack of specificity. So in the process of trying to kill the cancer cells, many of the normal cells are killed as well, which makes the patients very, very sick. This is the National Cancer Institute. So again, cancer is a very, very big world, and it's a very, very large science community all on its own. And I just did a quick search of the cancer drugs. So this is the A to Z list of cancer drugs. As you can see, this is just A. So they've been, the human population, we've been trying to develop cures and treatments for this for a long time now. So you have a vast number of drugs. One of the drugs I remember learning about early on is called cisplatin. So I looked that up, and sure enough, here it is right here on the list. And I'm going to show you the structure really quickly. And I don't have it queued up and ready to go. There it is. Many of the cancer drugs have a metal atom as the center. That's the structure for cisplatin. And this, like many cancer drugs, can be very, very toxic to the patient if they're exposed to it, if they're treated with it for too long. So with that, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say for my little intro. We're 30 minutes in, so I'm going to bring my buddy Alex in so he could tell us about, so we can start talking about the need for donors for leukemia and how there appears to be a disparity between the different ethnic groups. So Alex, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. How are you?
Good, good. I think this is your first time over on this channel.
That's correct. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Dr. Dunbar. Appreciate you bringing the topic up. Where to start? I mean, like you said, cancer is something that has affected, pretty much everybody. I'm sure you know somebody that has passed of cancer or a type of cancer, or somebody that died of a type of cancer. So it's something that affects our everyday life. And this particular subject, it hits a little close to home to me. So I have had the opportunity to meet an amazing young man named Derick, and he currently was diagnosed with acute B-cell leukemia. And speaking with his mother, she definitely educated me on some things that I was not aware of in regards to the amount of donorship, and when it comes to leukemia or bone marrow transplants, etc. So it is possible that Derick will need a bone marrow transplant, and I'll kind of transition where Derick is African American, and it was brought to my attention that 23% of African Americans who need a bone marrow transplant do not get a match. So, it's possible that 3 out of 4 African Americans who need a bone marrow transplant, unfortunately, do end up passing because, we don't have enough donors. And I believe, and I'm getting this information from bethematch.com. So I'll share a little bit of that with you in a second, or bethematch.org, I'm sorry. So,
Hey, Alex, before you
yes.
go on, I forgot to show this, and this is important for. It's important for everyone to understand why it's important to find bone transplant donors.
Okay.
So, everyone, this goes back to the mechanism of leukemia and how this works. So, for those of you who don't know, our bones are not just organs or structures to keep us upright and to allow us to be mobile. So, our red blood cells and our white blood cells. Well, let me backtrack that. Well, our red blood cells, at least, are generated in the bone marrow, and I would think, yeah, the white blood cells as well. That's why they would need the transplant. See, my background is not cancer. That's why I'm kind of tiptoeing here. But this is why the bone marrow transplants are necessary, because our red blood cells and our white blood cells are generated in the bone marrow, and this is a nice picture of it here that I found. Okay,
Correct. Yeah.
so go ahead.
Yeah. So with that being said, there's a huge disparity, in the numbers in regards to African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic, Latino Americans, and obviously white Americans. So white Americans have I think it is a 3 out of 4 chance for a match.
Alex, I have those pictures queued up and ready to go. So
okay, do you want to go ahead and show those? Okay, perfect. So yeah, so 77. So yeah, obviously 23% for African Americans end up finding a match. Asian, Pacific Islanders 41, Hispanic Latinos 47, American Indian, obviously, and Alaskan Natives are 57%, and white Americans are 77%. So what that means is that if you kind of flip the numbers around, it's a little staggering. Where on one hand you have 77% of white Americans in the country have a chance of, they have a successful chance of finding a donor, or they find a donor at 77%. Where if you flip the percentage around, it's 23%, meaning that 77% of African Americans will probably die from this disease because they don't have a donor, and the disparities from the African American community to all the other communities in regards to donorship definitely needs to be made aware. There are kids out there, and I'm not specifying just for African American kids. There are kids out there of all races, that need our help. That something as simple as donating a small bone marrow can save their life. So like I said, it does hit a little close to home to me, but I'm glad that I was made aware of it. And I actually have a kit myself, and you can actually pull one. You can actually get one for free. It's at a website called bethematch.org. And you fill out a survey. It's about 2 minutes. Anybody between the ages of 18 to 44 can sign up for it. It's really, really simple. They send you a kit in the mail. It looks like this. And in that kit, they will send you 2 swabs. So very simple. Here it gives you instructions on how to do it. Here are the 2 swabs. And then they even send you a letter back to mail it back. Everything is for free. It doesn't cost you anything. And with that being said, once they run your DNA through the system, you will be contacted if you if your DNA is a match for somebody else, right now or possibly in the future. So that DNA is stored. It could be a kid, maybe 10 years down the line that, might need your help, and that information is stored. I just think, I just feel like we need to do more as a whole in regards to that. They feel like everybody should be tested. It doesn't cost you anything to do it. It's very, very simple. It just makes all the sense in the world to, if you have the opportunity to save somebody's life, you should definitely step up and do that.
Okay, Alex, I have 2 more, because you shared 3 charts with the group, so I'm going to show one more here. This one is entitled Odds of Finding a Match Based on Ethnic Background. I think you described some of this already, but that's interesting that that the different ethnic groups would have more challenges finding donors.
Correct.
Is this? I think you're probably, this situation might be new for you. It's definitely new for me.
Yes.
In your research, have you heard anything about why this is? Is it just folks are not getting themselves screened, or is it just awareness?
I think it's a combination of a bunch of different things.
Mhm.
I think it's the background of the community that we live in, how we're raised. I think certain communities do not discuss things like this. I definitely know from my background in the African American community, my grandmother died of cancer when I was 9. I have a lot of family members died of cancer, within the past couple of years, and we never ever talk about these things. We never talk about, donating bone marrow. We never talk about transplants. We never talk about really our medical history. Those things just, at least from my standpoint, we just don't discuss those things. And that's really sad, because I feel like the more that we educate ourselves, the more lives we can save at the end of the day. And, something as simple as filling out a survey, as soon as this stream is over, I'm going to go ahead and swab it, send it back. This has taken maybe 30 minutes out of my entire life to figure, to complete. So I just think a lot of it is, how we were raised, and lack of education, really lack of education, lack of awareness. I'm sorry, you're muted. You're muted.
I'm sorry. Every time I try to answer a question over on the Facebook side, there's going to be feedback, so I muted and then went over there. But anyway, Miss Burdine, I see there's a loyal viewer out there, okay. Miss Burdine Nickens. Yeah. She has a question. If you have it, you should go ahead and ask it now, because we're only going for about an hour. I don't know who all these people are in the chat. I don't know if these. Anyway.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know what's going on today.
It's fine.
Anyway, so, and then you have one more here. This is all from Be the Match. So correct. This is a comparison between, Black citizens and white citizens, and wow, that there's a threefold difference there of individuals who will and will not find a donor.
Correct. And again, it says it takes 2 minutes to sign up and fill out a survey. They send it to you directly in the mail. For mine took about almost 2 weeks to get it. So there is a little bit of a delay, obviously, with the mail system currently, but typically they say it takes a week. But I got mine in about 2 weeks. Like I said, the most, I guess, the most interesting thing about this is that, I know a lot of people are not aware. Obviously, before, it hit so close to home for me, I wasn't aware. And I've had people in my family die of cancer, but, never these things, other types of cancers are really never discussed. So, like I said, I think it's lack of awareness. And again, it takes maybe a half hour to go through, put in your information, put in your address, email address, contact information. They send you a nice letter to send it back in. They send you directions, everything, and then you just send it back. It's maybe going to take a half hour, out of your life to maybe save somebody else's. I just definitely think that's worth the investment.
Okay. Herb, I appreciate that. You being I think Herb is a moderator. AB, I just made you a moderator. Art Newstall, if you're still there, I made you a moderator. And Kareem, I made you a moderator. You can come over and watch my content often whenever I go live. So I appreciate that. So you all are moderators. So if you see, Someone's
I don't know
spamming
what's-
my chat.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in the chat.
Strike
It's
them
really
down.
weird.
You can strike them.
Yeah, it's really strange.
Well, you know what I've been doing is I've been setting the tags up before the stream now, so I don't have to do it afterwards. So there might be people finding this who wouldn't have found it before, but still, I don't know why they spam something like this.
Yeah, but even if you're spamming it, still, the information's there. Just take the time out, please. And,
Yeah.
You might actually save somebody's life. So, if it's okay with you, we're gonna drop Derick's information in the chat if that's okay.
That's fine. AB, yeah, I just modded you up. Can you? Okay, so Alex, are you prepared to drop it in the chat right now yourself, or?
Yeah, give me just a moment.
Do you have it queued up? All right.
Yep.
So Kareen, I modded you up as well. So if you're new here, I'm not talking to the spammers from Turkey or Greece or wherever that you're coming from, or Europe. If you're legitimately here, please like the video. If you want to make a donation, I'm going to put my Cash App in the chat right now. I appreciate you guys watching this. Alex is a regular over on my sports channel, and he's helped it grow. And we just wanted to get the awareness out about this as well. If you're over on the Facebook side, thank you for watching as well.
It's not allowing me to do it, but as soon as I hop off, I will. I'll drop the information in the comment section.
Okay. Do you have my email address?
Yes, you want me? I can send.
Send it, and I'll drop it in.
Okay, good deal. I will do that.
I have my Gmail open right now.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of these diseases are they seem to be about, well, cancer. The big thing about cancer is catching it early. If you catch it early, you in most instances have the best chance of beating it, but also getting screened. If you're not getting screened for something, you don't know that you have it. You don't know that you can help someone else out with their affliction. So getting screened is critical in a lot of disease states. I see Miss Berdine has a question. She says, Miss Berdine, if you have it open in two places, you're probably going to get an echo because that's feedback. She says, the question is, how do donors interact with the person who receives their blood? So, Miss Berdine, so it's not blood, it's the actual marrow. But Alex, do you have something to say about that? So if you qualify as a donor, how does that work afterwards if you get flagged as a match?
If you get flagged as a match, it's my understanding that they will reach out to you, and I believe it's something as small as I believe the procedure, if I have it correct, is procedure that they take some bone marrow from your hip. It is something that they can put you to sleep. It's a really easy, painless, pretty much process. So I believe Be the Match handles all that on there. And I don't have the specifics, unfortunately. I did reach out to them, but they didn't get back to me in time to, for this particular stream. But I believe that, they handle all that from their end. So the recovery time, I believe, is for the patient is about 6 months.
So that's for the patient receiving the transfusion or the marrow. Okay, something's happening on his end. So it's 6 months for the patient receiving the transplant.
Correct.
Okay.
And from what I understand is that the way it was explained to me is that the patient is almost like a newborn baby, where they have to get revaccinated, everything kind of all over again. So it's kind of like their entire body immune system is starting from scratch.
Okay. So this is the GoFundMe for Derick?
Correct.
Okay. So as I drop this in, Alex, and folks, if you feel compelled to donate something, that's fine. You're not under any pressure. But since we just dropped that information in there, can you talk about, for a child who is dealing with this and the family dealing with this, what the costs are? Does insurance cover this, for example? And what happens if you don't have insurance?
Well, luckily, I believe that Medicaid covers a high percentage of it, or if not all of it. But I think for maybe somebody who is possibly older who's not covered under Medicaid, I mean the expenses are, they're astronomical. It's probably north of $500,000 easy, and that's just you have separate rounds of chemo. You have random hospital stays. For instance, if in certain situations that I'm aware of, if your blood is not, if your platelets are low, you might try to get a transfusion. You might have to stay in the hospital. Like there's so much that comes with this disease from a monetary standpoint that there really is no real set number, because every case is going to be different. Unfortunately in Derick's case, he has, he has one of the, I think he has maybe the 12th case of leukemia like his in the world ever, in history. So it makes it a little bit more challenging. So, as long as, the patient is doing what they're supposed to be doing, they should be able to kind of pull through. But, the donorship is a huge part of that. And the medication is a huge part of that. When you have a young child that's dealing with chemo, you're basically breaking down their entire system. You're killing everything that's in their system along with the cancer. So, and there are different types of chemo. There are chemos that kill your entire immune system. There are chemos that just target certain things in your blood, in your cells. So, that comes along with it. So I don't think there's really a set number that you can kind of point to and say monetarily, this is what we're looking at, because every case is different.
So let's see. Ashley Peach says Derick has Fanconi anemia with B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
Correct.
Okay. So everyone, I dropped the GoFundMe in the chat. At this point, Herb, thank you for the Cash App. From this point on, folks, if you're watching, if you're gonna Cash App me, if you want to put something in the, if you're gonna Cash App me, please throw something in the GoFundMe instead. At this point, so that's what I'm trying to say. Let's see. So Alex, what's it like for the viewers who've never experienced someone taking chemo? I've never experienced it. What does it make the patient weak?
Absolutely. For somebody like Derick, who's probably as tough as nails, the kid takes chemo and is like eating, an entire slab of ribs the next day, which is kind of unheard of. But it does make you weak. It basically breaks your system down. So, it makes you not be able to taste things, makes it, hard to eat. You can develop sores and, just all types of things. So it's really, really hard, on a child's system, but somebody like him is, he has his moments, but he's really tough. He's really, really tough. So.
Okay. I'm trying to think if we've covered everything. We've covered everything. So going back once again, the reason people of color don't get screened as much is basically lack of education, or they don't go to the doctor as much, or
I think it's a mixture of all those things. I think it's culture. our culture is not to discuss things like this in the African American community, at least my exposure, in my family, and everybody, all of my friends' families, like we just don't talk about these things. And kind of on this journey, I've shared it with you in our group. I've shared it with everybody that I know. Just it's just one more thing that to make people aware of things that happen every day that that affect other people, but we don't necessarily look at, and we have the opportunity to maybe make a change in somebody's life. And I feel like just taking the time out to be able to do that is well worth it. So being educated on something that you're not versed in, I feel like with technology is kind of no longer an excuse. So even if it's not necessarily this particular cause, I mean, I would basically beg you to please get tested. If it's not necessarily about Derick, there are thousands of other kids out there that you can be a match for, and you can save somebody's life. But educate yourselves on things that you don't know. One of the best things about technology is that information is there. All we have to do is just go look and find it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I can honestly say in my family, and I'm not blaming my family, but yeah, it seems like if there's no one in your immediate circle who's afflicted with it, you're kind of ignorant about it.
Correct. I agree.
Because some of these things are not, of all the things we can hear about in the mainstream media and in pop culture, something like this is not something we hear about often enough. Yeah.
I 100% agree. And I mean, unfortunately, if it does, it's on Twitter. It goes, what do they say? It goes viral for, 24 hours and it goes away. Well, unfortunately, something can go viral, but these people with this disease still have to live with it every single day. So, with that being said, going viral is not really important. Just, taking the time out and just getting yourself tested. Again, I'm begging every single person who's watching this, just please get tested.
Okay. Over on the Facebook side, Birdie Nickens says he's right. Most Blacks just don't talk much about cancer because it's too unpleasant. All right.
Well, I mean, I think Berdine is right, but I'd much rather have an unpleasant conversation and maybe save somebody's life than be comfortable and not. So, maybe Miss Berdine, maybe, if you have the opportunity to maybe address with some people in your family, and whoever's watching, address with some people in your family. I mean, I'm not asking everybody to change the world tomorrow, because I know life doesn't work like that. But, I think this is a good starting point to at least start having conversations, because I know we're not having them.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's everything. Do you have before we stop, do you have anything else you want to say?
Besides the fact that Ohio State beat Michigan today? No.
Just had to get that in there, didn't you?
I was waiting to the very end. I had to. It was close. They made me sweat it out. But yeah, no, I got nothing else. I want to thank you and everybody that's watching this, everybody that's tuned in. Thank you for taking the time to listen to Dr. Dunbar and myself. And again, bethematch.org. It takes 2 minutes to go in, as long as you're between the ages of 18 and 44. To go in, sign up online. It's just email address, first, last name, no confidential information. They don't ask for your social or anything like that. It's no confidential information. Email address, mailing address, so they can actually send you a kit to get tested. So.
Okay. Well, on that note, and we'll sign off, and I'll have to figure out how to keep all my friends from the Balkans and the Mediterranean out the next time. This is insane.
It's like 80 comments in the chat, and it's insane. But hey, you know what, guys? Yeah. If you guys are over there, get yourselves tested too. I don't care.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for watching. I'm gonna leave the GoFundMe in the description box below for the playback, and I will look into getting screened myself. So, Alex, quick question. So, when someone is a donor, what
Mhm.
is there a do you know anything about the surgical procedure for the donor? Do they just extract some bone marrow out, and how does that work?
Yeah, I think they go to. I mean, I think they. I think the company obviously will put you in contact with a local hospital. There'll probably be some additional tests that need to be ran, and just to be 100% sure that you are a match. And from what I was told, they literally just go in and you know take a piece out of your hip, and they put you to sleep, wake up, and it's over.
Wow.
But on the other side, that's when the real fight begins for the person who's receiving the bone marrow, because they're, like I said, they're basically starting over from scratch, and they can't really have any contact with anybody with the outside world from 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. If their immune system is compromised,
Correct.
then they can't afford to come in contact with anyone.
Correct.
Okay. Well, thanks, Alex. This has taught me a whole lot about leukemia and that what all surrounds that and what goes into it. So I know a lot more about that now than I did before we did this.
Yeah. Well, thank you for providing a platform for me to come in and talk about it. You have no idea how grateful I am. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'm sure I'll see you in the morning over on the sports side. Maybe.
All right. Maybe.
Everyone,
Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
all right,
Thank
you
you
too.
so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Please like the video. Please share. And everyone, Gino, I don't know what's going on with this one. I'm streaming this over to Facebook as well. There are some folks from the Balkans and the Mediterranean region who seem to find this interesting, but I've never seen anything like this before.
You're going viral. You're going viral.
I'm going viral. That's right. Well, I hope all those folks from the Balkans and Europe and the Mediterranean have at least liked the stream. So, everyone, be safe out there. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Alex.